Welcome to another My Sales Day podcast. Glad you're here. In a moment, you'll be watching my sit down with Stephanie Russell, a seemingly delightful seller who sells like she doesn't know where her next meal is coming from. Among other selling recommendations, Steph shares the anecdote of how it took her 2+ years to break her biggest deal of all time, a $10 million plus annuity. Great job, Steph. Good account to have. Let me remind you that you are one click away from signing up for the My Sales Day newsletter, which will give you skill tips and inspiration in your box every morning at 6 a.m. Head to mysalesday.io. Again, that's mysalesday.io. All right, it's time for me and Steph. Here we go with the show. Stephanie Russell, welcome to the My Sales Day podcast. How are you, Steph?
I'm good, Michael. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad I'm with you right now. Thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me.
My Sales Day is excited to have Steph with us from New York City, where sellers either get crushed or they do the crushing. And of course, Steph would not be on the show if she wasn't the crusher. I have known and worked with Steph for 5 years and love her career track. It's the classic and familiar story of sweeping floors, then moving quickly to the top. Steph started as a sales intern, then became a sales assistant, then a sales planner, seller, and eventually to RVP roles with big revenue and many peeps on her head. There's something powerful about learning to sell by seeing all the job at those levels, right, Steph?
Absolutely. Never a dull moment.
Never, never. Good career track. I like it. Let's dive in. Steph, best sale of all time. Everyone loves talking about their favorite sale. You've had many. Talk to us about yours. What skills did you use? What did you learn?
So, my best sale of all time would have to be Subway restaurants. When I was working at Tremor Video, in the early days, I was in charge of the dining vertical and was able to crack a ton of accounts: Applebee's, Carl's Jr., Domino's, and Subway was the bane of my existence, where it literally took me 2 years to be able to get a test. And one of the skills that I employed was just being incredibly persistent, was able to get that test. And we all know that's when the selling starts, and just serviced the business like crazy, was constantly in their office, sending emails that were thoughtful in terms of performance and what their competition was doing, was able to grow that test to over $10 million in spend through their holding company, MediaCom.
Whoa.
Was
Jeez.
great. And ultimately then was able to pivot to crack their 9 local franchise agencies across the country. So it was a long, hard fight, I would say, but ultimately paid off with almost $20 million in revenue.
Oh my gosh. That is awesome. That is great. And I think you're being a little humble, just crediting yourself as bringing the persistence. There were more skills involved, obviously. What were some of the ones that you learned along the way, if you can recall?
I would say being strategic and thinking about the stickiness that you can create. There was a moment where we were invited to the Subway headquarters. So knowing when to bring in the big guns, I brought my creative studio, my CRO at the time, and we were able to just develop relationships there that were really instrumental in helping us get in front of the franchise agencies. So just always thinking about their business outcomes and, using that to create stickiness, I think is a skill.
No, that very much is a skill. That's a good career defining sale. Congratulations. That's really, really big to work on something for 2 years, but then get so rewarded, with a lot of millions of dollars on the back end. Let's get to know Steph. We'll ask her a few quick fire round questions. Steph, in 10 words or less, what do you sell?
I sell ad tech, media, anything with data, technology, and supply, typically in the programmatic and connected TV space.
Love it. How many years overall have you been selling?
15.
Oh, you're a veteran. What's been your favorite sales job of all time? Did you have one, or they're all?
There's a tie between my time at Time Inc. and early days of Tremor Video, but I would say
Why Time Inc.? What was so good there?
I loved the pedigree. I loved working for brands that were in households. They were consumer brands, and I truly believe that I worked with the best of the best in terms of salespeople, and that was instrumental for me.
And then I cut you off. I'm sorry. What about Tremor?
Tremor, very similar, very innovative, fast-paced, a lot of, there was a sales floor culture, and we saw the advent of programmatic and connected TV there. So it was exciting.
Good. Core skills. What are the core skills that you use daily, that you depend on, that you rely on?
Being meticulous, I think, in your approach. Sales is a numbers game. We all know that with high activity, you get outcomes. So just being very diligent in every single day, how much time you're actually devoting to the certain activities that will drive success is important, and something that I do on a daily basis.
I've seen it. I witnessed it. You've got it. Yep. Being very attentive to the details, not letting any of the balls drop. That is a skill. It drives us crazy at times because it monopolizes our time, but it's so crucial. And the clients demand it, right?
They do. I think especially with things like AI, where I know people are a little bit nervous, but I think as salespeople, we can use it to our advantage. And it just is a constant reminder of how important relationships are.
Yeah, good point. Good point. AI is chasing us down. Complete the sentence. I love selling because...
Do I love selling? I'm kidding. I love selling.
I love selling most of the time.
Because it's fun it's like a game of Clue. So solving that puzzle and fitting the pieces to help fit your client's needs. I get a thrill out of that.
That is totally true. It is a puzzle, right?
It is. Sometimes
figuring out
unsolvable, but
yeah, well, you got to lose to win, right?
Exactly.
But figuring out personas, different approaches. I love the fact that sometimes a strategy that I think is going to be, the fastball I'm going to use every time, doesn't work every time, right? So it's always different.
Exactly.
It's always different. Yeah. Hey, complete the sentence. If I hadn't gone into sales, I would have become
some form of chef, some form of I love Ina Garden. I would be Barefoot Contessa and make my own spin on it.
You and my wife, we've got all the cookbooks downstairs in the kitchen, and when she brings them out, I know there's going to be a good meal. She's a good one.
Maureen and I.
I'm coming over to the house now. I'm coming over to the house for dinner.
Absolutely.
On you. Okay. Let's talk about your superpowers. Every seller has superpowers. We can't succeed if we don't have a lot of skills. What's yours? What's your superpower?
My superpower is understanding the importance of connectivity. I think being able to understand what drives the humanity of the person that you're ultimately trying to sell to. When I go on meetings, I think it's really important to understand more about them. Are you a mom? Where do you live? How do we connect on that personal level? And then how can I make your life easier? And just thinking about ways to make deposits into your bank to help you and your own cause before I ask anything of you, I think is really important and something that has set me apart in the sales landscape.
Do you think that has always come intuitively for you, or have you had to work on it?
Absolutely had to work on it. I think that when you are a more junior seller, you're really focused on getting your message out, and it's all about you. How can you go into the meeting and convey your message? But as I've gained experience, I've learned the importance of listening and putting myself in that person's shoes. And I've seen it as I've, risen the ranks in sales leadership, where if you are not listening and you're not understanding that person's perspective, you're instantly shut out of the consideration set. So it's definitely something I've had to work at.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say for the listener who might be struggling with this concept, we probably need to help them. So how can we help them accelerate that skill? What are the things that we could recommend that they do? Because it's much bigger than just finding out whether you're a mom or if you like the Foo Fighters, right? It's
Exactly.
deeper than that. How do we counsel them?
I think thinking about it as building any relationship, you don't just jump in and throw yourself, upon someone. Maybe that's a timeout. I think I don't know if I should say that.
We don't want to throw ourselves on anyone. Well, let's talk quickly about what is the, because I've thought about this and I think this makes for good radio.
Okay.
What the hell is the good answer to this? Because you could say it's a maturity thing, or you could say it's just an acquired skill. But
Right.
how do we accelerate it?
Like we are old and wise now where we know that there's life stages. But if you're a new salesperson, how do you know that like the, most senior parent on your team might have on the client team might have different priorities if you don't know what those are?
So I guess the conclusion is ask really good questions, be
Exactly.
observing, and then respond that way.
Yeah. That's what I
Yeah,
was thinking.
I would agree. I would agree. It's hard to teach it, but I've seen sellers out there who do spend time crafting their particular questions. And when you marry that against deep research, not just scanning the LinkedIn, but calling friends to find out, what do you know about this buyer? What are their interests? What do they respond to at work? The whole complexion. I think that sometimes helps, right?
Yeah, and even before meetings, I remember I used to try to find everything I could about the person, both professionally and personally, whether it's on social media or Google, just to be able to have some talking points to find that moment of connectivity when you're walking into the lunch and learn and you have those 5 minutes in the hallway together, and that's, helped set things apart.
So let's talk about that social media research thread a little bit. Is that passe now, where the persona that people put forth on social media is obviously their best self? Do we really learn anything by looking at all their social media other than, let's say, LinkedIn? I'm talking their, you know, personal life social media. Is there anything that we learn there usable in a business context? What do you
I
think?
think so. People like to work with people that have commonalities. I've managed teams that are calling on different regions like the Northeast, and I've heard quite often that people in say the Boston market would prefer to work with someone who lives in that area versus having a seller calling on them from LA. So I think being able to understand things on social media like what life stage people are in, where they live. So not in a creepy way, but you can just find a way to have that relationship building is just one way to propel yourself and differentiate.
Well, I would say to that, you are correct, because when I was listening to you, I was thinking when I was active on Facebook, which hasn't been for, gosh, at least 8 years. If you came to me and said anything about Vizsla dogs, my face would light up. Of course, the only thing I would post were about my Vizslas. So you'd have a very fast track to getting what you needed from me.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like it. Hey, let's talk about My Sales Day, the newsletter. The newsletter. You're a loyal reader. I appreciate that. Thank you. Has there been any post recently that's hit a nerve that we should dive into a little bit here? Because we can get a little bit more detailed versus the quick hits of that daily post. What's caught your eye recently?
Yes, I love your newsletter. So, you're not paying me to say that, but it is
Oh, stop.
extremely helpful, truly, in refreshing and just on a daily basis when you're going through the week in the sales mindset to just reframe. So, I appreciate you putting so much time into your newsletter.
Thank you.
The post I loved most recently was about having empathy. You wrote about the importance of putting yourself in the buyer's shoe and really understanding, even when it's not a fit, that it's okay and being able to connect on that. So, for me personally, I have been privy to many meetings where you can see sellers just continue forward. Their mind is in that how do I make a sale mindset. And, clearly either the timing isn't right or the opportunity isn't there. And oftentimes it's elements outside of our own control. And I think having that empathy and being supportive of the position that potential buyer is in really helps build a relationship. And being able, like I have been in meetings where we have just outright said, like, we're only halfway through the time you've allotted. I don't think there's a fit right now. We really want to be cognizant of you and your time. And why don't we regroup in a month or so when things have changed or evolved? And that's landed well, that's landed right, and it's kept the dialogue open.
That takes a lot of courage to say that in a meeting. How did you learn that skill?
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Probably trial and error, right?
Yeah, and potentially a mentor saying it and seeing it land well and the client be receptive to, time is of the essence. And I think I've also seen when people have a 30-minute meeting and they will just kill time, and nothing drives me personally more crazy than people that are not being respectful or managing the time well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you're right. I dug up the post while we were talking. The title was Empathy Just Feels Right. And I don't have a feedback mechanism built into the newsletter, which bothers me. I'm trying to change that because I wrote something a little bit controversial. I don't know if it's controversial as much as it opens up a good debate. And here's what I wrote. I'll read it. Today in your meeting with clients, don't attempt to twist everything about your product into what you think the buyer would buy. And stop right there and just say, well, but isn't that what we're supposed to be doing in sales? Is try to customize and frame our offering so it does get bought? And I would say, yes, that is true. But the point I'm making here is read the signs. If there's not a fit, stop pushing. Ease off the gas.
yeah, and don't be afraid to quote unquote go off script and brainstorm with your prospect and say, okay, this might not be a fit, but what if we were able to build this product in this way? Or what if it looked like this? And, hearing their feedback and asking the right questions where you can then go back and have their feedback inform your own product team so that you might be able to have a fit, I think also shows that you respect their point of view and aren't just trying to like jam something down their throat.
And to that end, this thread refers to something you said earlier, which is the first stage in our sales career. It's always about us. How do I get my message out? How do I deliver this talk track? How do I answer or respond to their question with my version of the value prop? It's very me-centered. Only when the seller is able to flip that and care about the buyer do you really gain leverage in the selling kind of relationship that you have with somebody. So that's an essence of empathy right there.
Exactly. Even you'll see sellers, I think, I don't use decks anymore and there's a place and time for them, but I think often people feel like they're launching into a pitch, and being able to feel comfortable in a room without a deck where you're just having a conversation where you can ask the right questions, you are prepared with a meeting agenda. That can be all you need if you know your product confidently.
Man, I think you were in the room with me and another client earlier today because I was counseling them and their sellers exactly on that. Don't use decks anymore. Maybe bring up your laptop to have a deck ready to show an a la carte slide here or there to break up the monotony of the presentation, or to use a slide that enhances one of your points. But the linear A to Z deck is dead. Clients are so done with it. They want somebody who asks good questions and can manage a conversation, right? And that's a form of empathy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Headwinds. There are many these days with sellers. The environment is hard. Competitive threats have never been bigger. Pressure with big quotas, doing more with less inside the organization. And I'm sorry to admit it, too, sales management that doesn't always offer the right amount of support, be it training, sales training, be it product training, be it emotional support. How does Steph stay focused, stay positive? How do you deal with the headwinds of a very, very challenging market as a seller?
You have to know it's a numbers game. You have to be resilient. I would say that some of my most successful years were fraught with challenges and no's. I will never forget the moment when a seller on my team and I crafted what we thought was the perfect outbound email to a prospect, and we received a one-word reply, unsubscribe, no period, no commentary, that was it. And she just showed me her computer screen and we died. But, we picked ourselves back up. We reread the email. We thought about how we could do it differently. And sometimes it's just not going to land no matter how hard you try. I think that.
I'm sorry. That is so fun. Subscribe. Were you guys, were you inflated or deflated? Sorry.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we probably cried, but then we laughed and moved on. You have to pick yourself back up and try again. I think that early in my career, I learned that you need to have 5 to 7 touch points that are thoughtful and strategic on average to be able to make an impact. And that's a high number. And I don't see a lot of salespeople sticking with it to do that in a thoughtful manner. And I think that's why some people don't succeed. And I think keeping that in mind is, what helps you feel like you need to keep going when you're not there.
Yeah. Well, I think the point of the story I heard was laughter is a big tonic, right? And it can get you through those moments where you say, I just wrote the best damn email of my life. Hey, there's another takeaway from that. Even though we're veering off the turbulence thread, because there's good skill takeaways here. Persistence you bring up. Yeah, stay with something. But number 2, don't try to sell through email.
Absolutely. No, do not try to sell through email. Getting to the point, your call to action in the first sentence is important. I would also say, being meticulous in your preparation for the meeting. You often only get one moment to make an impact. And I learned early on in my career when I was at Time Inc. as a sales assistant, it was my role to prepare for the meetings for my salespeople. And that incorporated me doing everything from tabbing every single magazine with, say the meeting was for Ralph Lauren, every print ad, every mention that the editors had. I would write a full-blown business report just for the salesperson to go on their meeting, how much money they're spending, how they're spending with the competitive set. So that was really instrumental for me in understanding how you only get that moment. You really need to prepare with how you're going to show up in these meetings. And it was very, very meticulous. To this day, I'd say I still prepare for meetings like that.
I have seen it. You are the queen of preparation, and it's not thoughtless. It's purposeful. It's meaningful. It's deep. And now I know where it comes from. I never heard that story before. That's a great foundation to learn early in one's career, for sure. Because literally, is there such a thing as too much preparation? I mean, okay, you don't want to be spending hours, but be thoughtful and do the work, and it's going to pay off. And by the way, clients will know it. They'll see it. They'll feel it.
They will. And you often hear people say, read the earnings statements if it's a public company, or, LinkedIn is a great treasure trove now, I would say, with whether I'm in advertising, if the ad agency is making posts about the case studies, just familiarizing yourself really can at least set the tone off on the right foot.
We had a previous guest here on the show who brought up the reading the prospectus for the stock offering and, all the stuff that traditionally people say is part of preparation. And I busted him. I said, come on, do you really read all that crap? And he said, no, but I watch all the YouTube videos of the CEO and how he communicates to the market, and I read his speeches. And I thought, that's the vision of the company right there. You don't need to read stock offering, prospectuses, and all these types of 10Ks. No. Yeah, come on.
I agree.
I love it.
I would think with ChatGPT now, you can even just ask them for a quick summary. So using AI as it continues to evolve, I think, could help us even with meeting preparation.
Look at that right there. Bonus tip from Steph. I love it. Hey, let's end with the one thing that you want the listener to take from today's show. We ping-ponged around a little bit. I liked it. It's always fun to visit with you, but let's just pick one thing each. You go first. What's the one thing you want the listener to take from today's show?
I think we talked about empathy and relationship building. I think that as you evolve in your career, the relationships that you create, especially in your younger years, just continue to evolve. So ensuring that you are setting time out to build relationships, be client facing, front and center. It really is the gift that keeps on giving. So just thinking about that as you're thinking about, empathy and putting yourselves in their shoes.
Yeah, get out from behind the screen, go see somebody, go get coffee, try to get in their office. It's so valuable. And that's when the empathy can really kick in. My one thing is something you've alluded to a few times. Your first anecdote regarding Subway, which is really a beautiful story. Congrats again. You brought it up as your number one skill right away, persistent. And then just moments ago, you talked about how sellers sometimes give up after 2 or 3 contacts. Sometimes it takes 5 or 6. Selling is all about repetitive behaviors, but they're the right behaviors. And being persistent and consistent is never going to fail you, ever. All righty, Stephanie Russell, you got to tend to business and bring in some rev. So we're going to cut you loose. But first, I got to remind our listeners why they joined us today. You listened because you're trying to be the best sales professional you can be. Even if it's a little thing that you picked up today or by reading the MySalesDay newsletter, it could make a huge difference in your selling. But your mind has got to be open. Steph, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. So fun.
It was. Unsubscribe.
Don't unsubscribe to MySalesDay.
Shut up. Don't even bring it up. And for you and everyone, remember, better habits equal better selling. Thank you for listening to My Sales Day. It was great having you here. For more, listen to our other episodes on your favorite podcast platform. And while you're there, leave us a review. I care what you think. And because I'm a seller like you, I got thick skin, so I can take anything you got. You can also visit mysalesday.io to join our email list and community dedicated to sellers just like you. My Sales Day is a podcast by sellers for sellers. And if you got something out of today's episode, help out a friend by sharing this episode with them. My Sales Day is proudly produced in partnership with Westport Studios. Views and opinions expressed by guests on My Sales Day are their own and may not reflect the views and opinions of their organization. Start your sales day the right way with My Sales Day. I'll see you in our next episode and in the daily newsletter.